Catholic cannibalism, exploiting the peasantry, and making Europe into unicorn vomit. Because today we'll be retaking the Holy Land in Crusader Kings 3. With the power of capitalism, cannibalism, and Catholicism, we can make the world a worse place. This crusade is also sponsored by Paradox, and the game is free on Steam through this weekend, so you too can set Europe on fire. But before we ruin the continent, we need to make a character. With all the wonderful customization options, I made this thing. Meet Count Flop's Moneybags, the craven, greedy cannibal, and the ruler of Italy. Or, well, some of Italy. Okay, one town in Italy. As the count of this one insignificant piece of land, we are poor. At the top right, we have our various currencies: money, prestige, and piety, or Jesus points. Our land was right at the tip of Italy, conveniently located near non-Catholic factions, which would help us later. Crucial to Crusader Kings are people, sadly. We appoint people to our council, people to lead our armies, and people to be vassals and control our lands. But first, we need to pick Count Flop's lifestyle, which is essentially his specialization. We have options of diplomacy and martial, along with intrigue and learning. But for us, money. Within our lifestyle, we have a skill tree to level up, and ours is all about making currency through extortion, because rights haven't been invented yet. But we do care about our nobles and their opinion of us. Right now, everybody hates us. Gee, I wonder why. Disloyal nobles means rebellion, so we had to make them like us. I was also introduced to my son and heir, whose name I cannot pronounce and whose face is like father, like son. When Count Flops eventually dies, we'll continue the game as our heir, so we do actually care about him. In the meantime, we watched our neighbors get invaded and met my daughter too. If this doesn't say inbred, I don't know what does. Speaking of inbred, my wife got pregnant, which would be great if my character weren't asexual and basically celibate. Welcome, son. Immediately after, we got an important notification. You are no longer obese. Flops' secret? A healthy diet, which leads us to a special mechanic, dread. Instead of making people like us, we can just do the exact opposite. Being a cannibal gives us dread, as do various events. For example, our spy master accused some dude of a grand conspiracy with no evidence. So because he's clearly innocent, we threw him in jail. Keeping our dread up means we can keep those needy nobles in check. But still, we'd need something to distract them. Taking advice from a beloved politician, we decided the best way was to invade the Middle East, who'd taken control of Sicily. Unfortunately, their army was just like their height, about 3 times larger than ours. But money solves all problems, so we hired a mercenary company to fight their entire army for us. Highly trained, profit-motivated mercenaries versus random peasant army. Not very close. We also captured one of their knights and threw him in jail. This gave us a few options, like releasing to improve relations. So we gave him freedom, in a way. We sieged down the enemy capital, which allowed us to end the war. By acquiring our first totally legitimately claimed province, we gained our first duchy. In Crusader Kings, there are various types of land masses. First, you have counties, which are single pieces of land. Larger, you have duchies, which are just multiple counties. Then you have kingdoms of multiple duchies and empires of multiple kingdoms, so on and so forth. By getting enough land in any one of these land masses, you can form a claim on the entire region. For example, we were working towards creating the Kingdom of Sicily, which would claim all of southern Italy for us. But to do so, we'd have to engage in some ethical repossession. I took a look in our prison and noticed we still had someone there. Unfortunately, they didn't have enough money to be ransomed, and doubly unfortunate, I realized that as a cannibal, I don't execute people, I just eat them. Because somehow, within the list of Catholic sins, cannibalism is not one of them. Before we could go to war for more of Sicily, we had to rein in the new land we'd gotten. In the meantime, my wife gave birth to Flops II, and my eldest son came of age. The heir to my throne is a squashed potato, and now married, so we could ally the Duke of Tuscany. Where we had 500 soldiers, he had 1,500. In order to form alliances, we need political marriages. That's where having lots of kids is actually beneficial, such as my son, not my son, and my other son who'd come of age. Just kidding, that's my daughter, the love child of Rumpelstiltskin and Chucky. Naturally, it made sense to partner with someone just like her. He is 5. Our new betrothal gave way to an alliance, but our ally called us to help them fight in a war immediately after. Okay, sure, I'll join the war. But what do you mean I haven't raised any of my armies? What do you mean I haven't helped you whatsoever? What do you mean you lost the war because I didn't lift a finger? How is that my problem? I was busy doing other things, like realizing I can ask the Pope for money. Come on, man, my people are starving. Which is unrelated, but I do want your money. Oh, and in case you haven't noticed, my character is a dwarf. I look like a goblin trying to rob this guy, which to be fair is probably true. But back to the issue of, well, war, I finally decided to invade our neighbor again. You know that ally that I didn't help at all? Yeah, well, he's our new cannon fodder. Him and the other 2,000 mercenaries we'd hired with stolen money. We did actually lose a few fights, but after our Tuscan allies came in, it was pretty easy to siege down their forts. Right before we ended the war, I got a message from my bishop stating my marriage was consanguineous in nature. Okay, define consanguineous. Relating to or denoting people descended from the same ancestor. Ah. Incest. You know, that actually explains a lot. Accidental incest aside, we'd finally won the war against our neighbors, and with it, the rest of southern Italy. With another duchy secured, we'd more than doubled our land. We were also close to forming the Kingdom of Sicily to claim the entire peninsula. What also happened that I didn't realize is that now Bavaria is Italy, which was at least better than whatever the hell Spain was doing. Then there's Poland, if I could even call it that. All in all, we'd have to expand downward for the rest of Sicily and Africa. But first, with our new land, we needed to actually secure it. Unsurprisingly, our newly gained vassals were unhappy with the hostile takeover, giving me ample reason to imprison them. But it did expose a big problem we had. See, when our character dies, we pass our titles and lands onto our next of kin. The problem is, with multiple duchies and counties, our kids will inherit different lands and shatter our combined fiefdom into multiple smaller ones. To fix this, we need to either A, disown our children, or B, form the Kingdom of Sicily. By forming the kingdom, our heir will become the king, and all our children will become their vassals, keeping our combined fief intact. To prepare, we married Not My Kid off for an alliance, taxed our peasants exorbitantly, and monitored our neighbors. Welcome back, Italy. It was time to go to war with the owner of Sicily, who was apparently 11 years old, and somehow wielding a force of 4,000 troops. After forcing my allies to do all the work, we occupied Sicily and even moved on to siege Africa. Something lucrative to do is always siege your opponent's capital, because it gets you prisoners to ransom. Or in my case, consume. Oh no, a mental break from my leader. This really is RimWorld. We ended the war and now controlled virtually all of southern Italy, but we still needed one more county to form the kingdom. We need to take land from either the Byzantine Empire, the Kingdom of Italy, that disgusting blob called Bavaria, or some tiny broke nation with no allies or army. With the final province secured, we could finally form the Kingdom of Sicily, transforming Flop's moneybags from a no-name duke to a slightly less no-name king. Ascending to kinghood in Crusader Kings is a big deal because it gives us unique powers. First, we now claim all the land in Sicily, meaning we can invade any of it for free. Second, we gain access to the royal court. So I present to you our Grand King, Flops. I didn't think our honor would ever stoop so low. The royal court is where our guests reside and where we hold court to decide on certain events. It also helps our chances of attracting talented people, which we improve by increasing how grand it is. Outside the royal court, something else we can do is negotiate our vassals' contracts, which basically means increasing taxes. With the Kingdom of Sicily founded, our next goal was to solidify our kingdom and expand southward. We constructed more income-generating buildings, promoted our culture, forcibly, and delegated more land to vassals. Our centralization culminated in our neighbor voluntarily joining our kingdom. I didn't even kidnap that many people. Some less than noteworthy events happened too, like Bavaria had a full-scale civil war, my daughter was eaten by a giant fish, and I pissed off my vassals by extorting all of them for money. To add on to our fortune, a healer showed up to our court. That meant we could spend money to recruit her, or more wisely, throw her in jail. Then I negotiated her release on the terms of forced recruitment. Lo and behold, a free new healer, which was just in time too, because Not My Kid got cancer. Whew, at least it wasn't me. God damn it. But after treatment, it started looking better for Flops, and at the ripe age of 60, we actually lived for a few more months. A conniving man, he will long be remembered for his pettiness and spite. Honestly, I expected worse. With the death of Flops, that meant we'd have to continue the game as our son instead. With Flops dead, it meant some big changes. First, we have to reappoint most of our council, but in doing so, we also needed to deal with our new vassals, which now were our brothers. Our new character also didn't have the skills Flops did, which meant we'd have to switch up our strategy. Where Flops was good with money, Ottenwolf was skilled with military, the kind of skill we could use for a totalitarian regime, which we'd need to invade Africa, because keeping control overseas is pretty hard. The second thing we'd need were friends, the expendable kind. Luckily, the King of Sardinia was receptive, because ghosts. But out of the blue, a child, and not from our wife. Thankfully, she's kept quiet and nobody knows the truth. Really? Are you sure? While we prepared for the invasion, we ransomed someone for $10. Our brother, Not My Kid, died, and we got insulted by his son, a 6-year-old. So what I'm hearing is more taxes. Our spy master also uncovered a plot to kill, well, her.
They don't know who they're dealing with. Oh, I'll show them. Oh, yes, I will.
Quite frankly, I'm more scared for the murderers. With our alliances in place, we finally declared war for land in Africa. No sooner did I do that than almost die from my jester. The reason? A really funny joke, followed by this event. I don't know what's going on. But back to important stuff like the war. We were slowly sieging down their forts as my allies' army had a seizure, captured their queen, and almost died in a fight. Good thing we were just wounded. But now it's just slightly infected. I mean, that's not too... Okay, maybe it was bad. At least we were succeeded by my 10-year-old son, whose first act as king was to get a pet cat and name him something French. Le Cat. Even with a 10-year-old in charge, we were still able to end the war and claim some land in Africa. We gave the land in Tunisia to our vassals, increased taxes for the 20th time, and our new cat straight up robbed someone. After a while, our character turned 16, meaning we could pick our lifestyle. While our first character was all about money and our second focused on military, our third would become a priest. Because our next goal involved religion, more specifically, the Pope, who'd apparently gone absolutely insane and doubled his land. I didn't even know he could go to war. See, the province of Rome is extremely valuable, and I want it. So I told my bishop to manufacture a claim on Rome as we prepared to go to war with the big Pope man himself. Before we could fight the Pope, we'd need some help. Big help. As you might expect, fighting the Pope is extremely difficult, and we need several large nations to help us out. Right now, our major alliance target was Bavaria, so we need to get a marriage going. In the meantime, we decided to go on a vast pilgrimage, giving us an insane amount of Jesus points. It also turned out that our wife was allergic to Le Cat and wanted to get rid of it. A compelling argument. Now, meanwhile, our bishop botched claiming us Rome because instead of getting Rome, he accidentally claimed the entire country. Mild tomfoolery at its best. Speaking of which, I sorta accidentally got myself into a war with a small nation. Turns out that small nation was actually all of Africa. Oopsie whoopsie, my bad. Ironically, we were bailed out than none other than the Pope, who'd somehow expanded again. But after securing our alliance with Bavaria, it was time to stop this completely unfounded aggression. Thus started World War I, Pope Sergius's wild ride. And immediately upon declaring war, I realized something. Where exactly do the Pope's armies actually come from? He doesn't have much land or alliances, so what gives? Well, it might have something to do with his 2,500 gold bank, which is 25 times our wealth, and in one singular day, he spent almost all of it. Where'd it go? Well, maybe it went somewhere in relation to the 10,000 mercenaries burning my lawn. Even with all our armies, this was too much. The Pope on his own was taking on 3 major powers at once and winning, but we had a secret weapon. Meet this unimportant fellow, the small-time king of the entire Byzantine Empire, whom of which we just called to war. Adding more than 15,000 troops to our side, we swarmed over the Pope and defeated his armies of mercenaries. At last, we besieged Rome and finished off the last of the papal armies. With that, the war concluded, giving us the single richest state in all of Europe, and also paving the way for our final conquest, retaking the Holy Land. By capturing Rome, we gained access to an extremely wealthy state. After moving our capital into the Vatican, you can see why we wanted the province so badly. The best part is that the Pope still liked us, and even gave us free money for invading his country. Now, step 1 of retaking the Holy Land. Remember that small country in Africa we lost to? Well, not this time. By taking their land, we now bordered the Abbasid Empire. That gives us a holy war goal on the Abbasids, meaning we could fight a war to take over an entire kingdom. But first, we needed more Jesus juice, which definitely wasn't helped by us, you know. While we waited for our piety to increase, I secured an alliance with Eastern France, now located in Western Germany. We also allied other France, vassalized a few random counties near us, and got an event. Compassionate Discord. Wow, that's just like my Discord. I mean, look at this whole... Anyways, we'd finally got enough piety to become a paragon of virtue. And with that, we declared war on the Abbasid Empire. Calling all of my allies into the fold, it was supposed to be an easy victory, until another war happened. And another. And another. At least we just got another ally in France, entering me into 2 more wars. Surely most of them were small, though. Well, we had a tiny Byzantine civil war, a French civil war, a German civil war, an invasion in Africa, a second French civil war, not to be mistaken with the first one, and we were now fighting the newly formed Arab Empire. Half of Italy was also occupied, and I originally thought the armies came from the Abbasids. Nope. Much like everything inconvenient in life, they were from France. I tag switched over to the Byzantines to see what was going on with their country. The first thing I noticed was their leader Crusader was naked and they were at negative 1,600 gold. As they say in Greece, crippling debt. So with all these wars, how could we possibly win? Well, allow me to introduce you to my patented 4-step plan that works in any situation. Step 1, abandon your allies. Step 2, abandon your people. Step 3, accidentally destabilize an empire leading to the untold death, destruction, misfortune, and rise of an arguably worse dictatorship. Step 4, profit. Results may vary, empires sold separately. I truly don't know how, but we sieged down their provinces and cheesed 100% war score, then forced a peace deal. Our allies were looking less empire and more, well, Byzantine. France was on fire, Germany had exploded, the Pope was still on a rampage, and the Middle East was in shambles. But finally, we've become one of the empires of all time. We'll just ignore the Civil War. If you enjoyed the video, do all that YouTube like and subscribe stuff, but also check out my Discord full of very sane people. Plus, Crusader Kings 3 is free this weekend via the link in the description, so come for the free game and stay because you married your sister. As they say in House Moneybags, keep it in the family.